Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. Picture this: an old man, weary from watching the world tear itself apart, decides he's done. Kingdoms are at war, people are suffering, and everything feels out of balance. So he does what any exhausted sage would do. He climbs onto an ox and heads west, straight into the desert, ready to leave civilization in his rearview mirror. But just as he's about to disappear forever, a guard at the final gate stops him. This guard isn't just doing his job. He actually recognizes the old man. He knows this guy has serious wisdom, the kind you don't want to let vanish into the sand without a trace. So he makes a simple request. Before you go, could you maybe write down what you know? The old man, Lao Tzu, sits down and in just 5,000 characters captures teachings so profound they're still being discussed 2,500 years later. He hands over the manuscript, then rides off into the sunset, never to be seen again. Talk about a mic drop. That manuscript, the Tao Te Ching. It's been translated more than any book except the Bible, and today we're diving deep into its mysteries with Dr. Wayne Dyer as our guide. Wayne Dyer was already a self-help superstar when one morning he read the Tao Te Ching and felt something click. Not just a casual interest, mind you, full-on obsession. He ordered 10 different translations and spent an entire year waking up before dawn, meditating on one verse at a time, basically asking Lao Tzu's spirit, "So, what did you actually mean by this?" What came out, he said, felt almost channeled. Ideas flowed that defied normal logic, full of paradoxes and mysteries that somehow made perfect sense. Here's my promise. By the end of this summary, you'll understand how to live a more balanced, joyful, peaceful life, not by doing more, but by letting go. You'll discover the art of doing nothing while leaving nothing undone, and find a strength you never knew existed, one that comes from softness, not force. This isn't dusty philosophy. This is practical wisdom for navigating your actual life, right now. So what exactly is this mysterious Tao thing? The very first verse drops a bomb. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. It's like trying to describe the taste of water. You can say refreshing or clear, but you'll never capture the actual experience of drinking it. The moment you label it, you've lost something essential. The Tao is the supreme, unnameable source of everything. It's the silent force animating the entire universe. It never begins, never ends, does nothing, yet somehow accomplishes everything. Here's where we Westerners typically get tripped up. We love our labels and categories. Everything needs to fit in a box. Good or bad, right or wrong, strong or weak. But the Tao lives in paradox. Beauty only exists because we have a concept of ugliness. Tall means nothing without short. Life and death are two sides of the same coin. A sage, someone who lives in harmony with the Tao, gets this. They see all the forms and objects we can name, but they also feel the nameless, formless source behind everything. Think about a daffodil. Does it look at a daisy and think, wow, that daisy is seriously ugly? Of course not. An eagle doesn't judge a mouse for being small. They just exist, perfectly in tune with their nature. This is lesson number 1. Stop constantly judging and labeling everything and everyone, including yourself. When you can do that, real peace starts settling in. You stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. This leads to one of the most powerful and possibly most confusing ideas in the whole teaching, Wu Wei, or non-action. The 37th verse says, "The Tao does nothing but leaves nothing undone." Wait, what? Do nothing? How does anything get done if we're doing nothing? But this isn't about being lazy. It's about stopping the constant forcing and pushing. It's about trusting life's natural rhythm. Think about trying to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you become. Sleep only happens when you surrender and allow it. Or picture a gardener. You can't force a tomato plant to grow by pulling on it. Your job is creating the right conditions: good soil, water, sunlight. Then you trust the process and allow growth to happen naturally. Life works the same way. We exhaust ourselves pushing, striving, trying to control every single outcome. We make detailed 5-year plans and get frustrated when life doesn't follow our script. Lao Tzu, through Dyer, is saying, ease up, stop trying to control, let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. This doesn't mean abandon your dreams or goals. It means hold them lightly. You do your part, plant the seeds, then trust the great organizing intelligence of the universe to handle the rest. You allow things to unfold naturally. When you do this, something almost magical happens. The right people appear. Perfect opportunities show up. Things fall into place in ways you never could have orchestrated yourself, because you're no longer fighting the current, you're flowing with it. As the book beautifully puts it, allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. Now let's talk about the ego. That's the part of us convinced we're separate from everyone and everything else. It's the part that needs to be right, to win, to accumulate, to take credit. It's the source of all our striving. The 7th verse reveals a powerful secret. Heaven is eternal, the earth endures. Why do heaven and earth last forever? They do not live for themselves only. The sun doesn't shine for itself. The river doesn't flow for itself. They give constantly without asking for anything back. A sage learns to live this way. The sage puts himself last and so ends up ahead. He stays a witness to life, so he endures. Another paradox. By serving others, all your own needs get fulfilled. When you give without expecting anything back, the universe, in its perfect balance, ensures you're always taken care of. Your focus shifts from what can I get to how can I serve. And in that shift, you find a fulfillment that no amount of accumulation can ever provide. It's like being a gardener who tends the whole garden, not just one plant. By nourishing the entire ecosystem, your own plant thrives more than it ever could alone. One of the most beautiful metaphors for this way of being is water. The 8th verse says, the supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. Think about water. It's soft and weak, yet it carves through the hardest rock. It doesn't fight. It doesn't try climbing to the highest peaks. It flows effortlessly to the lowest places, the spots everyone else avoids. And because of this humility, it becomes the master of all things. All streams and rivers ultimately flow to the sea because the sea lies below them. To live like water is to be flexible, gentle, humble. The 76th verse tells us, a man is born gentle and weak. At his death, he is hard and stiff. A newborn baby is incredibly pliable. You can put their toes in their mouth, but as we age, we become rigid, both in body and mind. Stiffness is a companion of death. Flexibility is a companion of life. Dyer shares the image of a tall palm tree in a hurricane. While the mighty, rigid oak might snap in the wind, the palm bends almost to the ground. Because it can yield, because it's flexible, it survives. In our lives, this means letting go of rigid opinions, being willing to listen to other viewpoints, not having to be right all the time. When you can bend, you cannot be broken. You learn that in weakness lies incredible strength. This way of living naturally leads to simplicity and contentment. In a world constantly screaming, "More, more, more," the Tao whispers, "Enough." Verse 44 asks some piercing questions. Which means more to you, you or your renown? Which brings more to you, you or what you own? It continues, I say what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. Every possession you accumulate becomes another thing to worry about, insure, protect. The endless chase for more wealth, more status, more approval. It's exhausting. And it never leads to lasting peace. Dyer calls it the disease of more. The cure is realizing you already have enough. The 33rd verse says, if you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. Contentment isn't about getting what you want. It's about wanting what you have. It's a shift from lack to appreciation, finding joy in simple things. A healthy meal, a walk in nature, time with loved ones. The 80th verse paints a beautiful picture of a utopian village where people are content with simple life. They have weapons, but don't use them. They have boats and carriages, but no one uses them because they love their homes and don't want to travel far. They enjoy working with their hands and aren't obsessed with inventing labor-saving machines. They live within sight of neighbors, but leave each other in peace. This isn't a call to abandon modern society. It's a reminder that true happiness doesn't come from external things. It comes from an inner state of peace and gratitude. It's about finding your own utopia right where you are. Wayne Dyer emphasizes that this path of simplicity and humility is the path of true leadership. A great leader isn't someone who controls and commands. The 17th verse says, with the greatest leader above them, people barely know one exists. The best leader creates an environment where people feel empowered, where they feel they're in charge of their own success. When the work is done, everyone says, we did it ourselves. This leader doesn't need credit. They don't rule with force or fear. They lead by example, with humility, like the sea staying low. They trust the people they lead, and in turn, they're trusted. They don't impose their will. They help people find their own true nature. This brings us to one of the most profound and perhaps challenging aspects of living the Tao. Living without enemies. Verse 69 makes a powerful statement. There is no greater misfortune than feeling I have an enemy, for when I and enemy exist together, there is no room left for my treasure. What is your treasure? It's your peace, your connection to the Tao. When you hold on to anger, resentment, and the idea of an enemy, you give away that treasure. You allow someone else to occupy your mind and steal your peace. The Amish community in Pennsylvania, after the horrific schoolhouse shooting, provided a living example of this teaching. They didn't just forgive the killer, they invited his family to mourn with them. They said, we have no enemies. We are all God's children. They understood that harboring hatred would only destroy them from the inside. Lao Tzu teaches that in any conflict, the one without an enemy will surely triumph. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It means operating from a place of compassion and understanding. It means not using force, because force always creates counterforce. As the 30th verse warns, weapons often turn upon the wielder. Instead, you use the most powerful force in the universe. As the 67th verse concludes, love vanquishes all attackers. It is impregnable in defense. Heaven protects him with love. Ultimately, all these teachings circle back to one central truth. You are not just this physical body, this temporary collection of bones and skin. You are a spiritual being, a piece of the eternal, formless Tao. The 50th verse is startling. It says most people are followers of life or followers of death, clinging to this world. But there is 1 out of 10 so sure of life that tigers and wild bulls keep clear. Why? Because he dwells in that place where death cannot enter. When you realize your true essence, your eternal nature, the fear of death dissolves. And as Lao Tzu says in another verse, if you are not afraid of dying, there is nothing you cannot achieve. This isn't abstract. It's something you can feel right now. It's the silent awareness behind your thoughts. It's the life force that beats your heart without you doing a thing. When you connect with that, you connect with the Tao. You realize you're not the wave. You're the ocean. The wave may rise and fall, but the ocean is eternal. So how do you get there? How do you live this God-realized life? The final verse, the 81 stone, brings it all home with beautiful simplicity. It says, sages do not accumulate. They give everything to others. The more he lives for others, the greater his life. The more he gives to others, the greater his abundance. The way of heaven, the way of the Tao, is to do good to all and harm none. The sage imitates this. He acts for the good of all and opposes no one. The entire journey of the Tao Te Ching, as Wayne Dyer so lovingly shares, is a journey of returning to our source. Letting go of all the things we think we need, the labels, possessions, ego, the need to be right, and discovering the peace and wholeness that has been within us all along. It is, as Lao Tzu says, very easy to understand and very easy to practice. It's simply the wisdom of letting go and letting God. As we come to the end of this journey, through Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, it's hard not to feel a profound sense of calm. In a world that feels faster, louder, and more demanding than ever, the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching feels like a cool drink of water on a scorching day. It's not another thing to do, it's not a new productivity hack or complicated system to master. In fact, it's the opposite. It's an invitation to undo. What struck me most about Wayne Dyer's interpretation is his deep, personal connection to this work. This wasn't just an intellectual exercise for him. You can feel that he lived these verses. He wrestled with them, meditated on them, and allowed them to change him from the inside out. He even shares in the epilogue how, just as he was finishing the book, he faced one of the greatest personal challenges of his life. He felt anger, hurt, the pull to create an enemy, and he said it was as if Lao Tzu himself appeared and said, "So you think you've mastered the great way? Here's an opportunity to explore your mastery," and he did. He applied the teachings, he chose peace, he refused to have an enemy. That's what makes this book so powerful. It's proof these aren't just pretty words. They're a practical guide to living with grace, even facing immense difficulty. The most potent lesson, for me, is the revolutionary idea of non-action and letting go. We live in a culture of hustle. We're taught that success comes from relentless effort, from forcing our will upon the world. The Tao suggests true mastery comes from the opposite, aligning ourselves with a greater intelligence and allowing things to unfold. This is incredibly liberating. It takes the pressure off. It means you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to stay open, stay humble, and trust the process. So how can you start applying this ancient wisdom to your very modern life? Starting today, here are a few simple ways. First, practice the art of allowing. Just for today, pick one thing you've been trying to control. Maybe a situation at school, a relationship with a friend, or even your own feelings. Instead of forcing a certain outcome, step back, be an observer, allow it to be what it is, without judgment. Notice the sense of relief that comes from simply letting go of the struggle. Second, find strength in softness. The next time you're in a disagreement, resist the urge to prove you're right. Don't raise your voice. Don't interrupt. Instead, listen. Try to understand the other person's perspective. Be like water. You might say something like, "I've never thought of it that way before. Thank you for sharing that." You'll be amazed at how this simple act of yielding can dissolve conflict and create connection. And third, live without accumulating, just for a little while. The Tao teaches that true abundance comes from giving, not getting. Find one thing today that you have a surplus of, a book you've finished, clothing you no longer wear, or even just 5 minutes of your time to listen to someone who needs it. Give it away with no expectation of getting anything in return. Feel the richness that comes not from what you have, but from what you can give. That was a summary of Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. We've touched on some of the deepest currents of wisdom from the Tao Te Ching today, but I'll be honest, a summary is like looking at a picture of the ocean. The real magic happens when you dive in yourself. The true power is in letting these verses wash over you, letting them settle in your heart over time. This summary is your invitation to the water's edge. If anything we've discussed today has spoken to you, I wholeheartedly encourage you to pick up a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just an act of learning. It's an experience, a meditation that can genuinely and beautifully change the way you see yourself and the world. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a moment of peace or a new perspective, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It helps us reach more people who might need to hear these ideas. Let's keep exploring these life-changing books together.